Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am super excited today to be speaking with Mia Hewett. She helps purpose-driven entrepreneurs stop secretly struggling and live in alignment with themselves, feeling free to be themselves so they can scale to 6 and even 7-figure businesses, hopefully on a fast track. Mia is the founder of Aligned Intelligence, which is a methodology that removes all blind spots, fear, anxiety, and self-doubt. And this really allows for clients to make accurate decisions, work smarter, not harder, so they can maximize their results in less time. She likes to say, feeling free to be me, living in the life they've always known they were meant for. And Mia, you have an incredible story. So welcome to the show first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And let's take us back. You know, I know that you had, I would say, an exciting and unusual upbringing in childhood that most of us did. So take us back there and then walk us along your career path.
Sure. Absolutely. So I grew up in South America. I'm blonde, blue eyes, blonde hair, but my father was actually Latin and my mom was American. So there's 4 girls and the youngest one came out like him with olive skin, dark brown hair, but blue eyes. And so I used to tell my mom, why did you feed her chocolate milk, right? Like she was the only one, everybody else is vanilla. And then we have this like chocolate baby. And it was really quite funny. But we grew up in South America. We grew up in Venezuela. I grew up in the jungle where they had never seen a white girl before. So it was really shocking to them. They would touch my hair, touch my skin, and, constantly want to like understand what I was. They always thought I was an albino. But it was a fascinating time. I grew up, with pet monkeys and catching tarantulas and so forth. Really innocent, I have to say, because we didn't really have a TV that worked. So, but my parents divorced when I was about 13 years old. And that's really where all my, everything started happening, where I started, we became really poor overnight. My father got caught cheating and sleeping with the woman next door, basically. And so my mom moved all of the 4 girls back to the United States. And she was a beginner teacher salary, trying to raise 4 kids. And so we really were really poor. I know one of the most tragic things that happened to me during the time is that my dog that I loved so much died because our house was so infested with fleas that they literally sucked the blood out of them. Like it was so bad in our house. And so I made a decision at 13. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I am not going to be poor for the rest of my life. And so it was really through that commitment, but as well as I always remember my mom crying, like she was always crying in the bathroom. And I just remember saying God, if you will show me how to be successful, I'm going to give this to everyone that would ever ask for it. Right. I made this internal commitment to find out how to do this and then give it to people. And so now fast forward, I, built a multi-million-dollar brick and mortar company. I did that for 24 years. Now I'm doing it again online. And the interesting thing is back then when I was doing the brick and mortar, I just couldn't understand how my whole life felt like once I got to be, successful, I was going to be happy and I was going to no longer doubt myself and I was going to no longer struggle with, anxiety or worried about what people would think about me. And that never happened. And so I was really shocked. I was kind of I kind of felt let down, because I felt like I was told my whole life, if you just are successful, you're going to be happy. So I really went on a quest. I was really wanting to understand why was I, don't get me wrong, I was really grateful, but I wasn't happy. And people often go, I know my ads sometimes piss people off. They're like, oh, you made millions and you're not happy. I'm so sorry for you. Right. But I can't tell something that's not true. I wasn't happy and I couldn't put my finger on what was I missing. Like, why was I always internally, emotionally struggling? Because I was always emotionally struggling. And so I went out and hired the best of the best. I spent about $500,000 on my own coaching. And inside of that, what for me, what happened is I would have these incredible people and they would say to me, well, just at the end of the day, they would just tell me to reframe the way I was thinking and just to think differently. Now that was really hard because it wasn't that I wasn't coachable. I was really coachable. I would do anything somebody said. But what really was so frustrating, it was like, if I could just do that, I would have already done that by now. Like, I know that it's not making logical sense. I felt like I was crazy. Have you ever felt that way? Where you're like,
no, totally. Like, yes. Easier said than done. Yes. Like you don't just snap and okay, great. We're done. We're over that.
That's what I mean. I felt like I was crazy. Yeah. Like I was like, don't other people struggle like this? Like I can't be the only one. I'm not that special. So like, what is it? Why am I constantly emotionally struggling? And so I really took this one gentleman who was really famous in the industry, best-selling author. It took him, I hired him, paid him $50,000, and I was doing everything he said, and I wasn't getting the results. And he was really frustrated with me. And he said to me, Mia, you just need to go in your room and lock the door and not come out until you figure this out.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, like, I needed that, though. I mean, like, I became like, this is the gift in the hindsight because I was so pissed in that moment. But that led me to becoming obsessed with, I said, okay, I can't be the only one that is really struggling. I'm going to figure this out. And then I'm going to give it to everybody who felt like I did. So long story short, I'm not an overnight success. It took me 6 years without someone showing me how to do this, but I did find out. I know exactly why people struggle. I knew exactly what was happening to me. I now have a formula that I use to solve anybody who's struggling. That's why it's called the Aligned Intelligence Method. But here's what it is. And so this will make a lot of sense for anybody who always knew they were meant for so much more. They know they're capable of so much, but emotionally, they just keep struggling. This is where it is. It's actually not in the mind. So the fascinating thing is, this is how it actually works. The fascinating thing is that when we're born, if you look at those babies, completely knowing we're worthy, like knowing we're more than enough, like really believing like the whole world was for us. Like we thought like everything was for us, right? And then, right? That's how we were born. That's natural. And then what happens is there will be an experience. Every single person has had this. There'll be an experience where that will happen, where that before that experience, they trusted themselves, they trusted others, and they trusted life. And when this experience happens, it blindsides them. It's like you never saw it coming before. And it caused you to doubt yourself, question, begin to think, well, maybe there's something really wrong with me. And because we're children, we don't have a conscious mind at the time. The conscious mind doesn't start getting developed until after 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old. So we internalize everything emotionally, not logically, emotionally. So what happens to people like myself and so many hundreds I've worked with is they'll have this emotional experience that happened when they were 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes, 2, right, inside of that. Or I've had a person actually have it at like 15 months, but the average is around 3 or 4 years old. And then from that day forward, it creates a pattern, a loop, an open loop of every experience after that where we feel trauma or a negative emotion. It will literally re-trigger that same emotional state
Mm.
over and over again until we actually heal it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely have read a fair bit about this as well. And, this bearing, it's almost like in your fabric of who you are, your tissue, so to
Yep.
speak,
Yep.
is one way to look at it. It's so interesting. I wanna come back to this because
Sure.
I know you wrote a best-selling book, and I know you speak on this, all over the world. Most of our listeners are entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
or aspiring entrepreneurs. So the
Hmm.
tone of this podcast is really obviously telling the story of amazing women and their entrepreneurial journey,
Yes.
and also signaling to those that are thinking about
Hmm.
becoming an entrepreneur, leaving their job, as I like to say, and
Yeah.
launching out onto their own, taking flight, um, is really helping them understand what that decision was like in stepping into entrepreneurship. So I want to rewind a
Sure.
fair bit here. You let's go back. You land in the U.S.
Hmm.
You're working extremely hard to help your family, help your mother.
Hmm.
Was it from the day you landed here at age 13, I've got to figure this out on my own, this entrepreneurial drive, so to speak? And did you take that all the way through to today, or was there a period of time that you went and worked for someone else? And I want to talk about your insurance agency and your spa if I can, because I
Sure.
do want to get into kind of the meat of how you built your business as well. So,
Sure.
but take us back. Have you always been an
Sure.
entrepreneur? Did you at any point start off by working for someone else?
Sure. Absolutely. So at 13, when I went to work, I found a family who was willing to pay me under the table because I really needed to eat. We didn't have enough money. There was too many kids, too many mouths, and really never enough food. So I went to work at 13. I was able to find a family who was willing to pay me under the table. So I worked for that family throughout the entire time I was in high school. And then when I was about, I want to say, let's say 19 or 20, I met a man who had just started an insurance company, and he hadn't built it yet or anything. And so I met him. I always wanted to own my own company. He already had it formed. He hadn't really developed it or anything, but he had it formed. So
Mm.
he made me co-owner of it. Together we grew it, you know, to a really huge agency. We became one of the top agencies in the state of Florida. Before because it was insurance, this was before Hurricane Andrew, and slightly after that,
Mm.
when they started removing our ability to write commercial and
Mm.
business, and then homeowners eventually, and so forth. But even still, it didn't matter, because the way that I built that with him is, even when they made those cuts, and I've been an entrepreneur 31 years now.
Mm.
So I've seen every market, I've been through
Yeah.
and the cool thing about, there's a real difference between making money and building wealth,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a totally different mindset. So the reason I say that, we definitely, created wealth. We made a lot of money, but we also really created wealth. And the way that we switched our mindset on that was, even when they cut our book of business, like we couldn't write because of, what was happening in the state of Florida with the hurricanes and so forth, we just found another way to have money always be working for us. And I
Mm.
think that's such a huge difference there, like when we do that way. But to answer your question, I did work for, I worked for a restaurant and for like years. And then I, knew that I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life working in a restaurant. But I didn't really have the money to put myself through college. So then it was like, okay, what can I do? But I knew I wanted to build something. When I built it with him, he was the face of it. So then that piece of like, I always felt, like I really helped him shine, which is awesome. And I really love helping other people shine. I wasn't jealous of him shining, but I always felt like I had to dim my light in order for him to feel better. Right. And so it wasn't that I felt like he should feel less, but I felt like I had to be less in order to do that. And so when I ran that company on my own for the last 7 to 8 years by myself. I just ran it myself. But when the decision came for me to go out on my own, like I was like, you know what, my kids, I've raised great kids. I put them through college. Like we had the last one going through college, paying through that. And I was like, okay, we're just great friends. We really aren't like, this isn't, he lived in a totally different state. I ran the company by myself. So I was like, look, we're just great friends. I really am going to go out on my own. But I'm going to give you 5 years, because he had never worked in that agency for that last 8 years. So he didn't know how to do anything. So I said, look, I'm going to give you the, 5 years. We'll put the last one through college, our last child through college. And then I'm going to go out on my own. People had already asked me to consult them. Like, how was I making so much money? Like, how could I have this multi-million-dollar company using such few employees? Like, I'm really good at understanding how to make money, but also be really effective at it. So people keep asking me, can you please coach us on it? Will you train these people? So I started doing that, and I had so much fun doing it. I said, okay, I'm going to go on my own in 5 years. And so long story short, he ended up, I signed the papers, because I've been married to him for 24 years. I wasn't expecting, I'd never lied to him. I don't have any crazy story. Like there's no cheating or anything like that. It was really just, we went our separate ways.
Yeah.
And so I never saw this coming. So I literally signed over, gave him all the properties. I didn't really care about that. I just was going to work for 5 more years, save the rest of the money. We split the retirement, and then go out on my own. And as soon as I signed those documents, he changed the lock on the doors because I owned 49% of that company. And I literally screwed myself all over again. And I'm like, like the very thing I never wanted to have happen was to end up like being homeless or being without money again. And here I am flat broke again. And so it was a real fascinating journey to then start my own company completely with nothing. Meaning my retirement was all tied up. I couldn't touch it so it wasn't that I had easy access to it because all that money was invested, and in the way that it was invested, we couldn't touch it until we're retired, right? In order not to like use it. And so I really know now. So it's the cool thing is why I can help anybody, create a 6 or 7 figure business is I've done it 2 times now from nothing. So it kind of is like, and now I've done it online, which online is quite different than, it's not different in the sense of the fundamentals are still the same, but it's fascinating to me what people can get away with online that you can't get away with on a brick and mortar. So I love that I started in brick and mortar because I have that foundation of what a really great relationships are like. And then how to grow, right? Wouldn't you say? I know you have. I checked out your whole spot and what you offer in co-working spaces and so forth. And doesn't that make a difference? Like when you bring people together? And I'm just curious.
Does. Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I think it's so interesting because as we're having this conversation, of course, the whole world has been flipped on its head, and lots of folks are kind of fleeing to the online world, like, in a 24-hour pivot. Yeah. But to your point, there's a lot of noise online as well. And it takes, I feel like probably 10 times the amount of marketing to some extent, because there is so much noise and you've got to capture people's attention. So I think it is good that you have both of those solid backgrounds to really understand the difference.
Yeah. I really do love both. I love the knowing of the brick and mortar because I really treat the online like the brick and mortar containers, as if it
Hmm.
like, so it really helps me understand, because I know with the online space it can feel like it's just this wide open space of like what to do, where in brick and mortar it's very simple, right? When you have a
Yeah.
building and you have certain containers and you're like these, right? And so my mind still thinks like a brick and mortar
Yeah.
online, which
Yeah.
is what I really enjoy. But yeah, it's really, it's been a journey for sure.
My goodness.
Definitely.
It's so much. So, well, I want to make sure we have time, Mia, to
Sure.
talk about what you're doing now and dive back into that. But specifically, the question is, how do you work? And what I know, it's an online company, but do you
Hmm.
do at this very moment, obviously not live conferences, but
Yeah.
I know you do a lot of speaking. I know you have the book. So just walk
Hmm.
us through, who do you help and how do you work?
Sure. I really help entrepreneurs, or those that want to be an entrepreneur, but they keep secretly struggling. I help them actually discover what really is holding them back.
Mm.
Like, I like to give real examples because it's, otherwise it feels too like conceptual. But like, for instance, there's a woman who just recently came to me, and she loves finance, has a passion for it, has been working in it for a long time, but has always worked for another company and wants to do her own company. But she kept secretly struggling. Like, every time she would get it off the ground, spend a lot of time, and put her heart and soul into it, and then just before it seemed to go, like, gonna go somewhere or finalize or something like that, she would just continue to hit these roadblocks.
Mm.
And so she couldn't, figure out why. And I've worked with so many like this, where she has 5 degrees. She,
Mm.
like, they have a lot of knowledge. They're not like, they haven't had some success, but they can't figure out why. They can't put their finger on why is it that they keep struggling. And when they see their peers who will take that same idea or concept later on to see them really, take it all the way, it's like,
Mm.
why can't I get, how is it that I have so many talents and I can't get this to work for me? And so the interesting thing is, it's never what we think. I've
Mm.
never had anyone come to me with the right problem, ever,
Interesting.
ever in all the years I've done this. And it makes sense, right? Because if they had the right problem, they would have solved it by now. So the problem is, it's a huge blind spot, which is what was happening to me. I had this massive blind spot, which I couldn't understand. Of why I kept emotionally struggling. And it's not what we think. So the reason I say that is, in, this woman happens to be, 49 years old that I'm talking about. And so, she's like, I've done tons of self-help. I've taken courses. I've, gone to therapy, which is all, like, my people have done all of it. And she's like, I can't figure out, why am I still constantly failing? And so here's the fascinating thing, because nobody would have ever found this, right? Even the therapist never found this. So when I in my book explains this, it really shows the truth of how the pattern gets created and what really stops us. But here's the interesting thing: when I took her back to find out when did she stop doubting herself? When did she start thinking that there was something wrong with her? This is the most amazing thing. It was when her cat died, when
Mm.
she was 6. So do
Mm.
you see how it's not like this big, like, the biggest thing that I get where people have a misunderstanding, they think it has to be something like really severe. Like, and
Mm.
not that I don't get those too. I've gotten all of them from somebody who's been, an entrepreneur who literally experienced, murder, or has experienced, like, I get all of it. And right. And so it doesn't have to be like that, but it can be as simple as having a parent or a sibling who's really moody, and you have to always feel like you're walking on eggshells. Like, it doesn't have to be so big, is what I'm saying. So this particular woman, her cat died when she was 6. And before her cat died, before this happened, she kind of had this, like, knowing of everything. Like she totally trusted herself. She totally believed, and like she could tell, like she knew exactly, like she had this intuitive side to her that was
Hmm.
really strong.
Hmm.
And then when this cat died, it shocked her so much because she couldn't understand how something she loved so much could have like died, and she internalized it to mean that there was something really wrong with her, that she must be bad because she should have seen it, she should have known,
Hmm.
and somehow she right, exactly, so
Wow.
she, yeah, right. And now watch how this sabotages her in business, so how it's linked. So I want to show
Hmm.
you how it links. So she made a decision, like, I didn't see it coming. I must be bad and wrong. There's something wrong with me. So here's her negative self-talk that keeps happening. Watch the pattern. When she would sabotage in business, here I go again. I'm lost. How is it that I can't see this? How did I not see that coming? Why did this happen to me again? Right? Can you
Hmm.
feel like there I
Yeah.
am again, not
Yeah.
seeing, right? Not seeing. So now she spends all her time worrying that there's something's going to happen that she can't see. So here's
Yeah.
why I want to just bring it to this as so that it feels like a complete container.
Yeah.
What really stops people is not what they are saying so much, unless it's the negative self-talk in their head, because they don't say it out loud. It's how they feel that they're not saying out loud.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right. And
And
what
that's
happens is,
tough to get under, right? I mean, you've got to be
yeah,
very, very skilled at helping people get under
yeah,
that, right?
yeah, because nothing can actually change until what is being unsaid is spoken.
Yeah.
And once that's out, and it's such a healing for people. They've been carrying this weight for like this. It'll feel like this backpack of like a 200 pounds comes off. But once that gets completely released, now it becomes so easy to then be focused, no
Yeah.
longer procrastinate, no longer feel exhausted, no longer worry like it's not going to be worth it. If you put all this in, it's just going to end up the same way, right? Because the pattern that was running in the background of the mind literally gets closed. And now
Mm.
they can begin to run a new pattern of feeling like, I do know how to see this. I can see what's coming. I know how to, we give them the skills to do that so that they actually have the exact skills to really be able to make accurate decisions, be able to define their intention, really get into alignment, and then create the results they want.
Love it. Awesome. My goodness. That
Yeah.
is some deep, important work that you are doing,
Yeah.
Mia. I want to make sure that we share how folks can get in touch with you, how to continue
Sure.
the conversation. But before we do that, tell me one thing you're most looking forward to in your business, in the next, say, 6 to 12 months.
Oh my gosh. My business is just booming. Like the cool thing that I love is that I'm international. What I love about that is I work with people from all over the world. So right
Mm.
now I have people in the UK and in Scotland, right? Like, so London, Scotland. I have people in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and then all over the United States. So what's really
Mm.
cool about that is um, what I love about it is I've been online using Zoom for a long time now.
Yeah.
I did have some brick and mortar businesses. So I have online and brick and mortar because I do both.
Mhm.
Those are
Mhm.
the two I specialize in. And so the cool thing about that is I've loved helping the ones that were brick and mortar. I was able to help them because I've been an entrepreneur so long. I knew this was coming. Like, I
Yeah.
couldn't have told you it was going to be a pandemic, but because I'm always watching the market, and we were in a bull market for 12 years, and usually there's something that's going to take the market out within 10, right? Every decade, there is something that happens that creates, so like the housing market was the last one in
Mhm.
2008. So we
Yeah.
knew that something was going to happen that would create this, I did not predict it was going to be a pandemic. So, but as soon as I didn't see that one. But as soon as that happened and I saw it start spreading, and it just started before they even asked us to sequester or of any kind, I took the brick and mortar businesses that we had, and we immediately helped them get online. Because we knew that was coming. Like, it was like, this is, and because I'm very aware that even when these down markets happen, they don't turn around on a dime, right? So I'm always telling my entrepreneurs, like, they will make it sound like it's going to be like any day now, like things are going to go back to like a normal or a new normal. It will not. And so what you need to do is really, really understand that, because the fastest they've ever produced a vaccine ever is 18 months just to have one and test it, not even mass produce it, like not manufacture it. And I said to them, you really want to go online quick and get ahead of the curve, which is what they did. And so my brick and mortar businesses that were brick and mortar that are now online are just booming, which is what makes me so happy. So really what makes me happy most in my business is really the successes of my clients. Like, I get more highs off of that than anything. Like, I feel like every time that happens, I fulfilled a promise that I made to God when I was 13 years old.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing your gifts with the world, Mia. Really, really appreciate it. Again, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. They can go to my website, of course. It's Mia Hewett, HEWETT.com. So Mia Hewett, HEWETT.com. And also, I'd love to give them a free gift. They can download my book for free. If they go to this particular link, it's only free in this link. It's called Mia Meant for More book.com. And the password they want to use is all together. It's called Free Book, capital F, all one word, Free Book. And they will be able to download that book for free and just read it and enjoy it. And it is written for them to uncover what they've been missing. So I'm so excited about that. I love getting messages all over the world of people who my book changed their lives. So it's really good. And we were just put on to the top 20. We were just nominated in the top 20 books to read in 2020 to thrive after the lockdown, and on Fox News. So that's a really cool thing. So great news.
Awesome. Congratulations. That's great. Well, wonderful. Thank you again for your time. I really have enjoyed our conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.